hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippine. Welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast. And I would like to welcome everyone really back to the channel. I've been doing a raw reaction every single week. Other than that, there's been nothing. And I very much apologize for that. I've just been getting out my phone and recording because over the last 2-3 months, a lot has happened, both personally in my life and professionally. And it all kind of culminated in these last couple weeks. I kind of had a last second job offer where I'm going to be joining the front office of a baseball team. And I just started that job maybe 2 weeks ago. I just moved out here to the middle of Wisconsin 2 weeks ago. It was a big change, a lot going on to facilitate that move and everything. And on top of that, other personal stuff in my life happened as well. So it caused me to not be able to make a lot of content so far this season, and I really do apologize for that. But now it's back to the way that it always was the last few seasons. I am going to be doing my typical 4 or 5, video upload schedule every single week, starting with the video you're going to be seeing today, which is the preview and the picks for all the games. And then I'm going to be doing my Vikings preview. So this week it'll be the Bears. And then I'm going to be doing my raw reaction like I have been doing the last few weeks. And then on Monday, or actually early Tuesday, I upload a video where I break down everything that happened in the last week, kind of going over the top storylines and kind of an early preview of what you're going to be seeing the next week. So it's so awesome to be back. I have a brand new setup and it's going to be a lot of fun. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's predictions as week 12 now rolls around. And as always, I'm going to be doing my upset of the week and just kind of rolling things along and getting back into the swing of things here. So we'll start things off here with the Thursday night football game. The Steelers at 8-2 going up against the 2-8 Browns. Now this is a matchup that a lot of people were expecting to be a much better matchup because of how good we thought both of these teams would be, but I thought both teams were going to be bad. And the Steelers defy my expectations every single year. I keep on waiting for that moment where I'm like, okay, here it comes. You've got a quarterback room of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson before the season started. We never thought that they were going to perform, and they really haven't necessarily performed great either way. But it's just the defense every single year. You think that they're not going to be able to make up for those shortcomings on offense, and they're able to get it done. I mean, this Mike Tomlin team, Mike Tomlin will go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time, and we knew that before the season started, but he just continues to prove that year after year after year. Adverse to what Bill Belichick did, where he ran with Tom Brady and then, left, basically. Mike Tomlin has had multiple different quarterbacks throughout the years, and he always has been able to string together winning seasons, playoff seasons. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Long story short, I have the Steelers winning this game against the Browns. The Browns have had nothing going for them this season. It just feels like the disarray that the team has been left in, kind of shadowed by all the things that have been going on behind the scenes, having Deshaun Watson and his, baggage, bringing down the team as well. It's tough to see the Browns go through that, but also they kind of did bring it on themselves. So I say the Steelers improved to 9-2. Now you always do the Vikings-Bears game separate from the preview. So make sure you watch that video tomorrow or on Friday, wherever it is you watch it. It's going to be uploaded, and that will be the official preview for the Vikings and Bears, and you'll get my final score prediction there. Next up, we have the Buccaneers and the Giants, a 4-6 team going up against a 2-8 team. And is this the game that we see Dable get fired? I'm wondering, because the Giants might wait to see what he does with DeVito and how the season rolls along without Daniel Jones playing. Because with the season already being pretty much lost at 2-8, that's really what the Giants are doing. They're weighing their options for the future. And if they see this team continue to struggle, with Brian Dable, with different quarterbacks, who knows what they're going to decide. I don't think it'll be this week that they fire Dable. If it was the case, they would give Daniel Jones one more chance. But I do think that it's going to be the Bucs that are going to get this victory. I did have Baker Mayfield and the Bucs falling off, which is one of the few right moves I've made so far in my predictions this year. I'll probably make a video pretty soon talking about all the things I've been wrong about so far this season, but I have had a few good or right calls so far as well. But even so, with the Buccaneers' shortcomings, they will probably overtake the Giants in this one, especially at a noon start. So I have them winning this one. I don't know if you all have seen the money line bets and stuff, people saying that the Panthers were going to be the first to take down the Chiefs. That is now not the case, or can't be the case now, because the Bills took them down last week. But so many bets being placed for the Panthers to upset the Chiefs, and it's just such a meme. I don't buy into that at all, even with the Panthers winning, a few in a row here, showing a little bit of life, which I am happy for them for. I have a friend that's a Carolina Panthers fan. I'm sure he's happy about that. But I don't think that the Panthers Super Bowl, or not Super Bowl, but the Panthers Bowl against the Chiefs is going to end very well for the Panthers. I do think the Chiefs are going to win this one pretty handily, not to mention the fact they are going into this game angry after losing that close one to the Bills. I fear for the Panthers in this game. They might get obliterated because of how angry the Chiefs are with that loss, but I do think the Chiefs will get the victory. Next up, we have the Cowboys and the Commanders. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. The Cowboys are in such disarray this year. It feels like I'm kind of a year late on some of my predictions, because one of the predictions I made, or maybe it was even the year before, that the Cowboys were going to collapse and that Dak Prescott was going to completely implode and he would eventually get hurt and the team would end up not even making the playoffs. I made that prediction either last year or the year before, and it didn't end up happening until the playoffs. But this year it actually did happen. The Cowboys completely falling apart, and now without Dak, it's not going to be good for them. The offense is as bad as we've ever seen it, and so the Commanders should be able to make pretty quick work of this. The Commanders, I am proud of my prediction there. I did have them having a really good year this year. I had them kind of being this year's version of last year's Houston Texans, which ended up being proven correct. Jaden Daniels has been absolutely blowing things up here these last few weeks. Well, a couple of weeks ago, he had kind of a rough game, but other than that, he is the clear runaway favorite for me for Rookie of the Year, and I think he's going to continue those numbers here against the Cowboys, pick up the win, and the Commanders will improve to 8-4. Next up, we have Patriots and Dolphins. Now, this is one where suddenly and surprisingly, both teams immediately started looking better. Drake May came in for the Patriots. He's proving why he deserved to have that top pick thrown his way. The Dolphins now getting Tua back. They've had much better games the last couple of weeks, so this might actually be a much more entertaining game than we thought it would be maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I do think the Dolphins will come away with this one. They're playing a game at home with Tua being back in the picture. The Tyreek Hill stuff is concerning. Obviously, for the long term of the team, they're not going to string very many wins together if they end up being without him for a while. But I do think that against this Patriots team, and again at home, I do think the Dolphins should be able to take this one home. I do see either team being able to take this one, but I think it will be the Dolphins. Next up, we have the Titans and the Texans, and drumroll please, I do think that this is going to be our upset of the week. Now, keep in mind, I get these kinds of comments, well, not every week because I haven't done this in a while, but every single week I do these, I get people saying that, why would you pick this? Why would you pick that? The whole point of upset of the week is to pick a game that is very unlikely to happen either way. It's kind of just a fun wild card I get to throw out. So I'm aware of how crazy it would be if the Titans win this game, but I feel like the Titans offense, especially against the Vikings last week, but also beyond that, they have been prone to a few big plays each and every game. And they have done so little the rest of the time throughout those games that it really hasn't mattered, and they've still managed to lose the majority of them. The Texans have been kind of a streaky team. They have dealt with a lot of injuries, and even with CJ Stroud and a couple other of their receivers being back in full force this week, the Texans are kind of due for a game where they have a meltdown, where they, give up more points than they should, and the offense kind of stalls out and they give up kind of an upset. And this is a division as well where the Texans can afford to lose a few of these games. I don't think that any team is going to catch them in this division. They have the second easiest division in all of the NFL. And so I do think that by the way, the Bills we all know are the easiest division in the NFL. But I do think that if there's any team that's going to get an upset this week, I do think it could potentially be the Titans in this one. So that is my official upset of the week. Lock that in. Lions and Colts, this is one where I was looking at it. I'm like, this could be upset of the week. The Lions are just unstoppable right now. It's going to take an offense that can match their caliber to be able to take them down. They do play the Bills later on in the season. That could be the game where they falter and lose, but I don't see the Lions losing much more than maybe two the rest of the way, and that's being a little bit crazy because the Lions are just unstoppable right now. Now, last year they were a little more inconsistent in certain ways. They did have a few clunkers, including that one against the Bears and the Packers. One of those being on Thanksgiving, but the Colts, I feel like Richardson has potentially the capability eventually to lead a high scoring offense. Not this season. He's been incredibly inconsistent. These Lions, we didn't expect them. We knew they'd be amazing offensively. We didn't expect them to be so good in the turnover game and in getting that pressure. And, they lost Hutchinson. They got Zadarius Smith. They haven't really missed a beat there. And I'm sure that the loss of Hutchinson will be a little more, clearly, you know, foggy for them as the future rolls on. But I do think that this Lions team is borderline unstoppable right now. The Colts, I don't think, are going to be able to slow them down. And so I have the Lions improving to 10-1. The Broncos and the Raiders. Do I see? I can't let my bias get the best of me here because you all know how much I hate Sean Payton. Any self-respecting Vikings fan should hate Sean Payton, but I can't be so biased that I say that the Broncos lose this game. The Raiders, their offense has been cooking a little bit more lately with Gardner Minshew's having kind of a Fitzmagic run right now. And, Brock Bowers has been phenomenal for them. Their defense is still pretty suspect, though, and Bo Nix has been on a bender these last few weeks. I do think this will be a close game, just like a lot of times it is in the AFC West, but I can't really confidently say that the Broncos won't end up with the victory here. Next up, we have the 49ers and Packers. By the way, the Broncos Raiders is the first opening of the afternoon game slate. So the 49ers and Packers play at 325. This will be a really good game. I know my boss is going to this game. It should be a really good, vibe in Green Bay after just obliterating the Bears' hopes and dreams. The 49ers sitting at 5-5. They just lost a game to the Seahawks that they 100% should have won and should have been able to salt that game away, but the Seahawks found a way. And it's just a question of whether or not they shake that off in a good way, or if they're gonna let that get to them going into a very hostile environment at Lambeau Field, especially because the temperature pretty quickly dropped here these last couple weeks. This will be their first real cold weather game of the season, not to mention the fact that the 49ers always deal with injuries. This year has been even tougher for them, and I just feel so bad for them because every single year it feels like they're dealing with something. The Packers are 7-3. I think they much more have the makings or markings of a 5-5 or maybe 6-4 team. They just have had some pretty easy teams on their schedule. I'm not saying the Vikings haven't either, before I get any comments about that. But I don't know. It'll be a close one. I do think the 49ers will battle. And now I'm starting to second guess myself, and it's not just the bias talking. I think it's because just the 49ers have owned the Packers so much over the years. Do they own them as much in the regular season? Kind of. You know what? I'm saying that the 49ers will win this game. I don't care. Call me biased all you want, but the Packers will fall to 7-4 after some careful reconsideration because I almost forgot about the history there. I'm just trolling. I knew about that the whole time, but I think that the Packers will probably lose this game against a team that has handed it to them year after year after year, which as a Vikings fan, obviously I love to see. And the Packers will fall to 7-4, giving the Vikings a great chance to get that stranglehold on them for that second spot in the NFC North. And if the Packers lose another game, I think that they are kind of lost in the NFC North division and will have to fight for a playoff spot for sure, or a wild card spot, I should say. Cardinals and the Seahawks. Now, this is another game that before the season started, I don't know how I expected this to go because I did have the Seahawks being pretty mid team. I did have the Cardinals being kind of a team that could surprise some people, be kind of a streaky team that isn't going to make the playoffs, but it is going to be a factor. And now here they are. They are in a position where they could make the playoffs right now. And they are actually leading the NFC West with all of the 49ers injuries issues. And all of a sudden, this is a great game because the Cardinals obviously want to win this game to get more and more pressure in the NFC West and try and run away with this thing. The Seahawks not only are trying to still fight for a playoff spot at 5-5, but this is how close things can get in the NFL. This is how close things can be in this part of the season and how important every single game is because 5-5 falling to 5-6 could lose you the playoffs. But if you beat the Cardinals in this game, both teams are 6-5, and all of a sudden you have a chance to take the lead in the division. So that's how crazy the NFC West has been so far this season, and it should continue to be this entertaining. You know what? I'm going to say the Cardinals win this game, and the reason why I'm saying it is because I think the Seahawks are coming off of an emotional come from behind win against the 49ers last week, and that can either go one of two ways. You either let it get to your head and you lose the next week vis-a-vis Vikings post playoff miracle game against the Eagles, or it can give you momentum and you can run with that. If I had to guess, I would say it probably will be the former for the Seahawks, even if it is an away game. It is a tough environment, and I don't think that this will be a runaway for the Cardinals. Don't get me wrong, it will be close, but I do think the Cardinals should be able to get this one done and get an even more of a I don't even want to say stranglehold because this NFC West is so close, but it'll give them more momentum in the NFC West by improving to 7-4. Next up, we have the Eagles at the Rams for Sunday Night Football, and this should be a pretty good game. You know, the Eagles, I think they haven't gotten enough credit for the way they've played this year, as much as I hate to say it as a Vikings fan. I do think that, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of arguments that they've had a soft schedule, but that's definitely not the case. They played the Commanders, they beat the Packers to start off the season. They beat the Bengals, who I think is a much better team than they look on paper because of the way they've lost their games. I mean, they've put up a lot of points and they've looked pretty good despite, their bad record. And they've beaten teams like they beat the Saints back when the Saints were playing some really good football. They beat the Commanders. I mean, they have had a pretty good season so far, and to be 8-2 through all that, especially because they started off the season not playing their best football and still managed to win a good amount of games to start out the year. The Eagles are looking pretty good, but then you have a team like the Rams who are pretty inconsistent. So on one hand, they could get blown out like they did versus the Cardinals, or they could put up a really impressive game like they did against the Vikings. And when all their eggs are in the right basket, they are a dangerous team, especially offensively. That being said, with this being basically a home game because it's at the Rams and no one goes to SoFi Stadium at home, I do think the Eagles won't get this job done. Jalen Hurts, it feels like he is slowly ramping up to be better and better and better and is getting back up to the kind of play he had back when this Eagles team went to the Super Bowl a couple years back. I do think this Eagles team will get the job done. It will be another game where, the Rams are 5-5. They could certainly get right back into the NFC West as well. So every single game is important for them. But on the other side, the Eagles are still trying to fend off the Commanders in that, NFC East division. I forgot that for a second. And so I do think the Eagles will get this done, but I do think it'll be another close game. We should see a lot of good close games so far this week. And then finally, finishing things off, it's a Monday night matchup. I am so excited to watch this game. It is the Ravens versus the Chargers. The Ravens coming in at 7-4, but probably one of the better 7-4 teams we've seen in quite some time. I still personally think they are the best team in the league right now, despite the Lions being 3 games better than them, despite the Chiefs being 3 games better than them. I think if the Ravens went toe to toe with either of these two teams, then they would get the victory. They are playing lights out right now, not to mention Derrick Henry is absolutely lighting up the league. And so it should be interesting to see how these two teams finish this year. The Chargers put up one of the most Charger-esque games you could ever see last week that they somehow still managed to win against the Bengals. I don't know how they did that on Sunday Night Football. Usually in these types of games, the Chargers would lose, but they somehow got the job done. McPherson's field goal misses certainly helped them, and they were able to improve to 7-3. I feel like they've been one of the sneakier 7-3 teams this year. I mean, people aren't really talking about them, but they're currently only 2 games away from the Chiefs in the AFC West, which is crazy considering the Chiefs are 9-1. So they are firmly in the playoff picture as well, and putting up a good fight against this Ravens team. I don't expect them to win, but sticking it to them and keeping this one close would really help them solidify it really make a statement is what I'm trying to say. Solidify their stance as one of the better teams in this league right now. Herbert is playing lights out. He has to work on his consistency and close games out, which we saw the struggle there last week. I do think that the Baltimore Ravens will win in the newest edition of the Harbaugh Bowl, with both of these two teams playing each other once again in the NFL, with the brothers both coaching. The Ravens should win this game, especially because, again, this game also being at SoFi, it's basically a home game for the Ravens. I think that this Ravens team is unstoppable right now. It's crazy how they got off to the start they did, because they're the best team in the league for me, and they will win this one against the Chargers, which I hate to say because I love the Chargers, but the Baltimore Ravens should win this one to finish out Week 12. And that does it. It's kind of weird for Week 12 to not be Thanksgiving week, but that'll come next week, and there should be some good games there as well. But let me know what you think in the comments, what games you agree with, what games you don't agree with. I'm just really happy to be back doing this, and I really hope you enjoyed it. And I thank you all for your patience as I really was MIA for the majority of this season. I'll still be doing my raw reactions for the Vikings, but I'll be making a lot of other content throughout the season or rest of the season as well. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.